went through our safety debriefing this morning. And we can actually make it so they can put their name in there too. So we can capture all those signatures, save that as a PDF, and that lives with the record. All right? And we can extend forms to both jobs, work orders, and quote records. And forms can get pretty dynamic. Some forms, like we'll have sprinkler or fire alarm contractors that need to go ahead and do a pretty extensive site safety inspection, and they'll have safety inspection forms or maintenance forms. So here's that form. There's a visibility up here. That safety check was completed at this date. Or if I want to see that form, I can go ahead and drill into that, and I can see those results. Okay. So finally, let's go ahead. I want to go home, but I need the customer to sign the paperwork. So the big goal of Sage Service Operations is to get rid of that piece of paper that technician has to manage. It's usually what, carbon copy, 2 or 3 pieces of paper you rip off, the customer signs. Because once the customer signs that journey for that paperwork continues. Right? It comes to the office. Well, you got to make sure the employee drops it off at the office and faxes it in, right? And they don't spill coffee on it. And then once it gets to the office, right, you'll probably have stack, and stack. So, quick story. So I used to, in my prior career, I used to work for an HVAC contractor. That's why I'm using that as an example. I ran about a service team with 70 technicians. Imagine 70 technicians, right? Each knocking off 3 work orders a day and having that paperwork come into your office on Monday. It took 2 days, 2 people just to sort all of that paperwork, cross-reference it. Hey, was this apprentice working with this journeyman today? Match up the time cards, make sure everything was right. Essentially what Sage Service Operations is doing, we're getting rid of all of that process. We're making it, available in real time in your office, so there's no more data entry in your office. All of this data entry, the labor, the notes, the photos, that was all done while you were on site with the customer. And if it was service work, you were charging the customer $100 an hour to do that input. And we're really, the role in the office really becomes I have more time to review and approve and make sure the invoice that is going out is correct. And I have more time to react to jobs that are not profitable, instead of spending all of my time sifting through paperwork. But let's go ahead and capture that signature. So on the reports, I can go ahead and create that service report. You can rename this. We can change this label. Maybe you want to call it work order, ticket, job. Let's go ahead and bring that up. So when I bring up that service ticket, it's going to have your logo, and this is branded to your organization. And we actually have several templates. So if you want a portrait view versus a landscape view, you can flip around those templates. And also, this form, there's a whole page of settings. So if I don't want my customers to see any pricing, if it's service-oriented, I can hide that pricing. If we want to hide the labor section, we can hide that. So you can really customize what information is displayed on this form. But basically what I would do is I would present my smartphone or tablet to the customer. They would read it. They would come down here, and they would go ahead and add their signature. They would sign off on that form, and we can go ahead and save that. We can save that as a PDF and go off to our next call. So if I go down to my attachments here, I have the ability to see that service report with another document saved against that site. And there's my, my signature. So the paperwork is done. And here is, you can also add, we have placeholders on the header and footer of this document. So you can go ahead and update your legal jargon if you need terms and conditions, or put your license numbers on there and things of that nature. All right. We can also, yeah.
Customer asks for the copy of the service report, can you email?
Oh yeah. So when you set up the system, most of our customers automatically, when that signature is captured, automatically send an email to the customer as a receipt. We can make that automatic, a manual process, and take that away if you don't want the technicians to have that functionality. Yep.
When you take pictures on a job site, can you record the GPS location?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to drill into this artifact here and see. We'll have to get back to you with that. So I know that on the service ticket that we sign, the customer signs, we can capture the GPS. On the daily field report for construction jobs, we can capture that. On punch in, punch out. I want to say we have it on attachments, but I don't think it's, I think the framework is there, but I don't think it's enabled yet.
But most
those pictures now come with the GPS metadata, if that's turned on in the device?
Yes, you'd have to find the original photo on your smartphone to see that, right now.
I don't want my technicians to do that, I want them to do it that way.
Yeah.
No, the metadata travels with the picture when you upload it.
So I would assume that that's coming, because we are coming out with, I didn't jump into it, but it's a conversation for another day, but we have a new mapping view coming out, and we're really extending what type of activity you can see on the map. We're trying to take it beyond the punch in, punch out, and show virtually everything, so you can kind of have an activity feed of what did Bobby do today, right? Show me everything that Bobby did, everything that he added to the system, kind of like an internal audit, because I want to make sure he didn't do everything at 5 o'clock at night, sitting on his couch and pretend to sign the documents when he did. All right, so let's kind of go back to my assignments page real quick here. So my assignments page, this is also that weekly time card for Jay. I'm logged in as Jay. And you can see I have my payroll time here. And once again, all that time is in the system, ready for review and approval. And I won't get into it today because I don't have the time, but we have, if you want to have a review and approval process through Sage Service Operations, you can review and approve time in SSO before, and then also have a secondary layer of review in the office directly from the accounting system. So you have a lot of options with SSO in the back-end accounting system. As you can see, so at the end of the week, when I submit my weekly time, just talk about this a little bit, all of those entries are already in your accounting system, so you can already react to them, respond to them. This is simply replacing that technician's physically signing the cover page of their timesheet and then driving into the office. This is just letting you know, so hey, I'm all done, and I want to let the office know I want PTO next week, please. And then I can go ahead and I can sign off on my signature, and I can save that as easy as that, and I can see that, hey, Bobby sent in his time and said to the office, I'm done with everything. Now in the office, I know I can go ahead and review and approve his time, depending on how we lay out our billing process. Maybe we wait until everybody's signed off. Now I know I can go ahead and invoice all his work orders. But that is really useful from an office perspective to build accountability into the process, to make sure our employees are accountable in the field. A couple other things I talked about. We can actually prevent, so if you recall, I was punching in and punching out, right, on that work order. So if I drill back to that work order, and I'll drill back using my history button here, which is really nice. So I can go ahead and quickly jump to a recent activity, but I'm going to jump back into that work order. So when I punched in and punched out here on that call, we can also build in workflow rules into that process. So I can say, do not let my employee punch out of this call until they complete this form, or until they identify the piece of equipment they're working on. Because a lot of people say, hey, it's great that you have, all of the air conditioners listed on the site, but our guys are never going to pick that. But if you want, you could really force them to do that, or essentially they don't get paid. So we have a lot of ways to manage that we've developed over the years to help ensure that they're putting the data into the system that you need so you can run the reports and processes that you need on your end in the office. Right now, so maybe I'll take 5 minutes, talk a little, answer any Q&A. I still have more time, right? Yeah. Okay. About what I went through, and then I'll kind of jump into the sales side and what we can do to capture sales opportunities. Anybody?
Quick question. Sir, on a construction site, I might have 5 or 6 general laborers. I'm not going to put a tablet or any general laborer's hand. Is there a spot for my foreman to track the hours of the general laborer that are there for 4 or 5 hours that day, and I'm not going to put a PDA?
No. So that's a very good question. So let me just show you. So I don't have it set up. So we have this concept. So we have what we call a supervisor role. So as a journeyman, I have the ability to enter time for another individual, or it could be a crew. On the job side, we have so we have different licensing for SSO. I'll talk a little bit about that. We have a standard user, and the standard user has access to everything: work orders, construction jobs. They can enter time for themselves, and they can enter time for 100 individuals. We don't care. We then have a superintendent license, and that only works for construction jobs. And that superintendent license is somewhere, in the middle price range. It's a lower price point. that superintendent can enter time for themselves, and they can enter time for as many other employees you want. And we actually can enforce crew punch in and punch out, so he can punch in and punch out 10 people at once if you want. Or he can manually add the time and identify the cost codes. We have a lot of flexibility with that superintendent role. That superintendent can also, on the construction job site, create a daily field report, so they can capture the weather, they can capture, an OSHA incident. And those forms, those custom forms I showed you, they can also use forms and take photos. Finally, the third role we have is what's called a time entry role. I should have had a slide for that, I'm sorry. The time entry role is nothing but, a basic user is only a couple of bucks a month, and all they can basically do is punch in and punch out for themselves. That's it. And add a basic note. And that's what we call a time entry role. So we do have, depending on the makeup and of your organization and the types of users you need, we have all those different types of licenses available. So I'm kind of logging in there and showing everything. Did that answer your question?
I guess you're going into this quotes are covered in the next session.
Yes.
Just wondering if the quotes automatically get transferred to the work orders or duplicated.
Yeah, sure. Great question. So, and I'm going to pivot into that in a moment here. But think of our quote solution. So if I go to quotes here, and just bring it up while I talk about it a little bit. Sort these so we have some. So there's only a few in here, but think of quotes as an opportunity in a CRM system. So we're not trying to be a full-blown CRM system, but we do understand a need in, in the market today, especially if you're a service contractor, right? I'm sure everybody says, hey, go out and fix my refrigerator, right? But if it's more than $500, I need a quote. And that is a huge pain point for a lot of Sage's customers. Managing that process, right? So if the technician's on site, how do they efficiently document that and get it back to the office? So I'm going to show you how a technician from the field, and it doesn't have to be a technician from the field. We actually have a lot of customers that use this for their inside-outside sales team. So a customer calls up, hey, we want to replace that generator, create a quote from scratch. But I'm going to show you today how, if I was a technician in the field and I'm fixing that air conditioner and I find a bad compressor, and I know it's going to be several $1,000s, and I know the customer wants a quote, how do I create that sales opportunity from the field? How do I document some high-level information, take a photo of the issue, and then how do I quickly get that to the salesperson in the office? And then what I'll do is I will show you, change my hat, and I'll show you what it's like to be a salesperson. And then I'll update the quote, I'll send it to the customer, I'll show you how we can report off of that, and then when the customer approves it, I'll show you with one click of a button how we can create a new work order or a job in the system in real time without duplicating the entry. All right?
Is there a method to import data to create work orders?
So you mean, are you referring to from Service Channel or Corrigo or some third party?
It's something, we have 50 calls a day and we want to be able to import the data so we don't have to manually create work orders.
So there's no, there's a couple ways to answer that question. So first of all, there is ODBC if you want to build some type of tools to do that. You could, with Access, you could probably do that and make that happen. Secondly, we do have some integrations today with third-party management systems. So think of like Marriott hotels. They use this product called Corrigo. Corrigo is pretty well known and that's kind of like an asset management system for the hotel. And it's used by like them, Wendy's, Stop and Shop, supermarkets in the U.S. So we do have a connector today for those customers that need it. That's an extra fee, but we can automatically, when they send a work order to you, we can pick it up and automatically generate those work orders in the system. Those type of connectors, though, I only recommend if you're doing hundreds of work orders a day. It depends on what's the pros and cons of doing that integration. We are also working on a few others like Service Channel and so forth, but there is some flexibility around, so that might be a conversation to take, find out what are the needs and find out some more details. Any more questions?
Just a couple about your work orders. I
Sure.
noticed it was a drop-down box for selecting material.
Sure.
Is there an option with text to typing?
Oh yeah. So I locked it down in this. But yeah, we can have either. So you can set up predefined items like X, Y, Z, or you can let them type it in. Some people want it locked down. They don't want them to be able to type it whatever they want, because what they find is technicians get lazy and they don't go and find the material that they're supposed to get. and it messes up inventory. But yeah, we can most 50-50, I think half the people have it wide open, so they can just write in, hey, charge them for extra permit fee.
Can they add a second work order when they're on the job site?
Yep. Yeah, I didn't go over that. So when I showed you generating a work order, that's simply a permission. What we usually see is a lot of customers will let their technician that's on call on the weekend or at night, they'll give them the ability to generate their own work order. So when McDonald's calls them, they can self-service. They don't have to call the office and open a work order for me. Can I open my own work orders? Or if we're doing a PM, preventative maintenance call, and they can open up as many work orders as they want. Those are more sales opportunities.
Do you have the function, imagine that a site technician, they have a lot of tools and equipment with them around in the hand that they don't conveniently keep using fingers to type in. Do you have a function?
Yeah, so like voice recognition, yeah, it's a text. So actually that's a function built into most cell phones today. So when you're on the keyboard, it's all about what operating system you have. So I know most Apple and Android devices have the little microphone on the keyboard. And we support, if your phone supports it, SSO supports it.
Okay. And also in the very beginning, I saw you use cursor control your tablet and also switch to the cell phone, smartphone.
Yes.
So which means at the end, for example, I'm in the office control the projects with my tablet, I can have the function click or control the cell phone of the site technician.
Well, so as far as logging and seeing what the cell phone, what the technician does, you do have some administrative privilege, like an administrator could log in as them and see what they're seeing. I was just kind of trying to show what we mean by responsive design, meaning it looks a certain way, has a certain look and feel on a smartphone versus a tablet. So we automatically reshape or resize all of the buttons and relocate them based on the device. So you can't really control, you can do that by dragging the screen if you want from a demo perspective, but that's all automatic based on the size of the screen.
I have a question about the time entry role you were talking about.
Sure.
How does it work?
How does time entry work?
Yeah, how that particular role works, you say.
Oh, the role?
Yeah.
Oh, so when the role, it's basically, they have the ability to log in, they can identify the job they're working on, they can either punch in and punch out or manually enter the time, and as they do that, we'll capture the different information, like their pay time, they're getting paid regular time, overtime, cost code, what cost code are they working on. There's some other categories that you could add and capture, and you can also capture a note. But essentially, in a nutshell, it's just replacing that paper time card that you have today, and automatically putting the information into your accounting system so you don't have to key that in. So then you're in the office and you can just review and approve it, or make any adjustments you may need.
Another question, if you have a helper and a main technician, you don't want to give the license to the
Yeah.
helper. So you just get a main technician to enter the hours, or is that?
Yeah, correct. Let me show it. Let me just show that in its most simplistic form. So I'm going to jump back over to that work order record that I was on, and there's a lot of ways to do this, but just to, actually, you know what? Let me do this first. I'm going to go to admin users. I'm going to show you the user level first. So I'm going to go to me here. And so you have all these different roles and permissions. But if I'm a supervisor here, I know it's kind of small, I apologize. But if I'm a supervisor of Stanley and Gary, I have the privilege to enter time for those two employees. Okay? So if I jump back to that work order here, and I'm just going to show it this way. If I add labor, you'll have a drop down with those additional employees you can add time for. Okay, so you can change who you're entering time for. So I want to add time for Joseph for 2 hours. I happen to have everybody because I'm logged in as an admin, but just to give you an idea. So now as one licensed user, I enter time for 2 different employees. Right? And we can enforce punch in and punch out with that also. It's all about how we want to deploy that. Me? Sure.
For the construction perspective, for billing to the customers, if we just only want to use for the billing only, not for the payroll, can we do it like time management for the project management, site supervisors and different?
Yeah, so are you guys using, are you billing like fixed price projects or time and material?
Fixed price.
Yeah, so this is think of SSO as a way to get this part of the product, and Kerry and his team can show you really the back end accounting side. When we're dealing with construction projects, we're mostly providing visibility to your employees in the field. What am I supposed to be doing today? And we're letting them also identify, okay, I worked on this activity for 4 hours, and then we're pushing that information back into the core accounting system, which does flow all the way through to the project management job cost module. So then you can have awareness, okay, what's our percentage of completion? What's our cost complete? How much can I bill? So it works from that aspect. The actual billing portion would be done in the core accounting process.
No, my this perspective to give the information to my clients also. They will know that how many hours as a project management is spending, how much is site supervisors.
I see, I see. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways to do that, but a lot of that would probably be, so the client portal I talked about was only for work orders. There are some within the Sage product, depending on which product fits you best.
Sage 100.
You're in Sage 100?
Yeah.
I'd have to look into that. I'm not an expert on the back-end accounting, so there might be some automated reports you can send to them, but today we don't have that visit. I mean, you could probably, I'm thinking out loud,
So what was the question?
if you provide the customer with like visibility into the WIP, or what's our percentage completion, or how many hours do we use?
Used by the project management and site supervisors and different levels and labors. Yes, what amount we are billing.
Absolutely. So Janice can help you with the finder at the end of the day. There's an automation tool whereby you can say what you want sent out and puts that in automated.
So is there a way to, I'm noticing you're using a web browser for this. Is there a way to, let's say you go into a rural area, you don't have any LTE, is there a way to work offline on this app and then update the information and get back on?
Sure. It's a great question, so I'll repeat that. So what if I have no connectivity, right? I'm offline, I'm in the middle of nowhere. How does this product work? So the way there's a couple answers to that. So the first answer is, this is not designed to go work in the middle of nowhere and never have internet connectivity. The product does have today, using the web browser, it does have, we like to frame it, and I like to be clear, limited offline functionality. And here's the example I like to use to explain that functionality. We can basically track and store the last transaction. So if I'm in the basement of a big building and I have no connectivity to the internet, when I bring up that ticket to have the facility manager sign and I'm offline, we'll let you do that. But when I get back outside, it's going to say, hey, you were offline during the last transaction. Do you want to resubmit now? So we store that on the browser. There's a way to do that. And so that solves that problem. But if you're but we don't have the ability to send you 5 work orders and you go update all the records and then send it back. Now what I will say is we do have apps that are pretty much done. But those apps aren't going to be released until after this release because we still have to go through third-party reviews and all that stuff. So there will be an Android and an iOS app for SSO probably before year end at the rate we're going right now. But I think Android is going to come out first and follow shortly thereafter by iOS. But that is the next major release after this release that I'm showing you right here. Okay. And that just gives you more options.
That's a real quick question. The different licenses, so if you have a licensed user who's only clock 8 o'clock hours, he can see a schedule for that day as well?
Yeah, so they'll have access to that like assignments page. They can see, this is what I'm doing all week. So if you want, you can let them see their whole entire schedule for the week. And this is where I need to go and what I need to do. And then clock in, clock out, they can take basic notes. I installed XYZ today. They can also sign their timesheet at the end of the week and submit it. They also can see what we call, it's not on here. We have another feature called Employee Center that we give it to you for free, but that you could store like PDFs, like your company handbook and anything you want on that. A lot of people will put like safety messages up. It's just a great way to communicate with the employees.
So you're referring to like a $2 smartphone? Is that what?
Well,
like say an apprentice can just have that?
Yeah, if you want. So some customers, most of our customers. So the way I'll talk about what we see from an industry perspective. At least in the United States, and I don't know what the case is in the US, so we have 3 users, right? We have a standard user, which is the most expensive, then we have a mid-tier user, which is like a superintendent, and then we have like a time entry, which is like, it's short money. So it's 3 levels depending on what you need. In the US, we actually see a lot of people using this middle tier approach where they have a foreman who would enter time and manage the payroll for 10 or 15 individuals. In some states though, in the US, like in California, they want for the law and the labor law and all that, they need each employee to punch in and punch out. So it's all about how do you run your business today, think about that. Do you want to continue to have the foreman do that, or today do you already have your individual employees in the field keeping track of their own time cards? So it's all, and we can have a discussion with you what makes sense.
Do they modify their schedule to what they work orders almost do? Say he's in Toronto, he wants to go at this place, it makes sense. Can you actually make modifications and just upload you?
Yeah, so if you're a regular user, yeah, you could actually provide them with the availability to see the dispatch board, or you can provide them with visibility into like a bucket of calls. So when I say a bucket of work orders, general practice for service industries is to think of a whiteboard and you have a row of, these are all my emergency service calls that need to be scheduled. These are all my parts on order. You can pick and choose what bucket that employee can see. So if they're unassigned calls and I want my technician to see that list, they can actually go ahead and add themselves to that work order. And then everybody else on the service team in the field will have visibility and know that, oh, that's no longer unassigned, Bobby's working on it.
Is there changes to schedule if you reroute them? Like if they're thinking they're going to be here one day and then you change your schedule up, is there a notification?
Yeah, so we can enable email notifications so that, and you can decide when. So we can automatically send an email to that employee in the field every time a change is made on the schedule. Or if you don't want it for everything, you can say only show it for certain criteria. So we have different statuses. So only show it when they're notified of this call. We have a lot of flexibility is what I'm trying to say, I guess, around that.
Can you send multiple emails in that insert?
Yeah, so we have the automatic one, whereas I drag and drop and I say, okay, you need to go to Bank of America on Wednesday. Bobby automatically gets an email.
Wow.
And then if I was to drill into that on the screen, we have a secondary email notification feature which will basically bring a pop-up, and then as a dispatcher, I can say, put in a custom comment, right? And I can say, hey, go here now, I just got off the phone with the customer, they're really upset. And then the great thing about sending those notifications through SSO, especially the one with the additional action from the dispatcher, is all of those notes are stored against the work order, right? So if a dispatcher's out, they're out sick, or whatever the case may be, it's not tied up in their Outlook, right? Everybody has visibility into what directive was given to that technician in the field, and they can see what was the email that employee sent to that customer, to that technician. I think there's some, sure.
So when we buy this product, can you do all the customizing? Like, it's just, there's so much.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So and we can talk about that, but there's a few different ways to handle that. And it depends, that's a big question because it depends on, would you look at it from, the accounting side or the SSO side, the Sage Service Operations side. There's the effort to set this up it looks overwhelming, but our goal is to try to make it super intuitive, right? So it already comes set up out of the box with like default settings that we've done some research and looked at all of our customers and what are the, you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, so when we put this in place, we were basically up and running in about a week to 10 days. And then that was back in 4 years ago. We got input from our staff and it sort of progressed within probably a month and a half, 2 months. We were fully integrated to the point where our staff, our field staff, were comfortable with the product. But initially, we were like less than 10 days. We were up and running.
How many people?
We started off in Ottawa, so we were running about 35 technicians.
How many people were helping it with the information?
Oh, it was basically, we had a team of 5 in Ottawa, working with Jay and his partner Adam, to keep this stuff running.
Yeah, but that depends. You're talking about the accounting side, right? Or
No.
are you on 100 or 300 today?
We're on 50.
Okay. So for those on Sage 50, you'd have to migrate from Sage 50 to either the 100 or 300 product. That's not a one an easy, it all depends on the organization. So that would be like, all right, we need to do a needs assessment. That'd be a conversation with Kerry and his team, I think. But but if you, assuming you already have the accounting system in place, which is, put it that way, the typical customer, and Tom and his team, they're pretty complex. And they took, what, a week or two? But the typical engagement and effort is probably anywhere from 6 to 12 hours of time to get 80% of the core functionality done. Now, some people go crazy, right? So if you have offices in every single state, and every single state wants to work differently, and they want to have different workflows, that's going to take some time. But if you're a standard team, you have one office manager, and you know what you want, there'll be a typical engagement where there'll be a dedicated account manager, probably someone from Carrie's team, or our team, or a mix of that to work with you, and we're just going to go down the list. And how do you run your operations, and we'll talk about this is best practices that we see other people doing, and we'll try to help you steer you in the right direction.
Yeah, usually there's a series of 3 calls, right?
Yeah, so there's typically 3 calls, so there'll be, a lot of it is done via like a webinar. So the first call will be, hey, let's go ahead, we'll run through, I'll just kind of show you here. So we kind of try to make it easy to look at. So if I go to the settings here, but we'll basically run through all the different settings, and we try to put as much in-product messaging so you know what those settings mean, but we'll walk through them, ask some questions, and flip a few switches with you. That's usually like an hour and a half. The second call would be to then, all right, those settings are done, let's train the office staff on how to use the product, and that'll be like in a couple of hours. And then we'll go ahead and actually perform the technician training. The technician training typically takes about 45 minutes, so what I always suggest is do the technician training over a WebEx or a GoToMeeting so that we can record it, right? And then you can take that YouTube video and train additional employees that you hire. And then you'll usually have a single point of contact for the first 30 days. That'll be an account manager. The same person will help you with the whole entire process and help keep you up to speed. And then you can reach out to them with any questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? And then at Sage, we have there's a dedicated support team. So you don't go through the regular channel. So there's a dedicated support team. There's about 8 to 10 individuals on that team that this is all they support. So they know this product inside and out. Any more questions before I jump? Okay.
Just with the schedule, like you talked about individual technicians, what about projects where you got multiple technicians that they want to know that they've got these people active?
Yeah, so that's where so on the project side, I go back to that resource planning, solution. So in this case, I'm seeing 03-003, right? So I'm seeing all of my employees for that job, so I can go ahead and create those assignments. I can also see like a monthly view if I wanted to. So I can see, and I can quickly go ahead and schedule them out and drag and drop those if I need to. But let me go back to the.
So individually, they can see who else is on your crew for that day.
So if you want to open that up, I can go ahead and let. Yeah, they'd have to be a supervisor of those employees, and they'd have to be a member of the job team. But yeah, we can do that.
So that means that each of the program that people we're using and have to be customer staff qualified from you.
We've had some employees that, it depends on what program, if you're talking about the back-end accounting or this. We've had some customers that have onboarded themselves. There's also built-in how-to videos and things of that nature how do I open a work order? How do I, there's a whole set of resources around that. But if you're more, to be honest, but if you're more than just very, very basic functionality, you probably want somebody to help, to make sure you're successful, because otherwise you might spend more time of your time, instead of just talking to somebody that says, oh, this is where that switch is.
Who manages the program?
Who manages the program? Like
Maintenance.
The maintenance. Oh, sure. So Sage Service Operations is actually hosted by Sage. It's actually hosted in an AWS data center. So you don't need to do anything. Everything is, if there's a release, there's nothing to do on your end. It automatically is made available. In the top right-hand corner by Dathan's name, there'll be a red dot that says, hey, just in-product notification, these are the new features, and then you can drill into that. And if you want to enable those features, you can go ahead and enable those features for and we'll usually have like We're trying to get better at this, to be honest, but we're putting in product videos, so this is how you use your feature. And we're going to have in-product videos for that, the 6.4 release that's coming out here shortly.
And of course, virus protection and hacking
Yeah, sure. That's a good question.
Yeah.
So first of all, from a security perspective, well, let me back up. So Sage is a publicly traded company, so they take all of that very seriously. Secondly, all of our, I don't know the technical details here, but everything's in AWS, in AWS data centers. There's third-party audits that are regularly performed by independent companies to make sure all that stuff works, and there's other systems in
I can
place.
speak to that if you have questions.
Okay, yeah.
So from your scheduling screen, if you, can I see like my entire crew of like guys that work in construction and guys doing service on one line?
Yep.
So I don't know, I have a service call that came in and it happened to be down the street from a construction job, but I think easier to pull a guy off construction than.
Yeah, so you can, so I just kind of showed everybody here. So you can have multiple views. So see that drop down? So I can say, I can name one of those all employees, just to see everybody. We also have some new mapping functionality that's coming out too from a visibility standpoint. So if I pull up the map over here, I can see my jobs or my work orders. I can filter to show certain, this is a bad example because the map is, I have things on both sides of the country, but I can go ahead and drill in and see those details on who's on this job, who's my job team on this job. So there's a lot of flexibility with the map also. The map is getting a lot more work too, so I don't want to focus too much on it, what it is today, because it might be changing a little bit.
So I can see, say, pull from construction and move back
Yep.
and forth.
Yep. All right, so why don't I jump into that quote process, because I think from a service organization perspective, the #1 used feature in SSO is managing work orders. Okay, the #2 most utilized feature is managing quotes. All right, and a lot